a culture based on hard work, determination, and strong family values, is given a different image by the media. This almost makes it hard to understand exactly what it means to be an Italian in America. May it be the Godfather of the past or the Jersey Shore of today, the media has and continues to perpetuate stereotypes of what it means to be an Italian American. Let's look at some stereotypes of Italian Americans. Mafia, loud, hot-headed, uneducated, and we all have to own some sort of restaurant or pizzeria or deli of some kind. As a woman, I have to be obsessed with marriage and having kids. Since I'm young, I have to look like this. When I'm older, this is supposedly my fate. I can tell you right now that no one in my family looks like either. These stereotypes are inaccurate, but we have films like Do the Right Thing, My Cousin Vinny, and The Godfather that further instill these stereotypes. But don't get me wrong, they're all great movies. In Do the Right Thing, Sal owns a pizzeria in New York. So right away we see this is the only thing he can do. Not only that, he was angry and yelling at everyone the entire movie. In the end, his anger was his downfall when he smashed Radio Raheem's radio with the bat he kept behind the counter. Many will argue that this shows whites against blacks, but I saw this as the Italian man's anger getting the better of him. So, in My Cousin Vinny, Vinny Gambino was not only a hothead, but he acted like a complete idiot even though he went to law school. The running joke of the movie was that he just barely passed the bar, but he was a good lawyer because he was Italian and could argue. So, there we go. He's what you would call the faso or the fool. Basically a dim-witted Italian. Have you ever heard of Joey Tribbiani from Friends? He's another perfect example. Oh yeah, and Vinny is also from New York. So, with The Godfather, I feel like there's no explanation needed. The Godfather shows an Italian-American mafia family in New York. You know, I'm sensing a pattern. Apparently, if you're Italian, you have to live in New York. Well, I live in Baltimore, and I'm originally from Detroit, so I guess we didn't get the memo. So yes, The Godfather perpetuates the mafia stereotype, but it also reflects what Italian Americans had to go through when coming to America. During the 1920s, there was an influx of Italian immigrants. They were seen as outsiders because they looked different, acted different, and had a different language and religion. So they had to be bad, right? In fact, Italians were lynched in the South because they were believed to be committing organized crime every single day of their lives. They were also thought to be somewhere between blacks and whites on the racial color spectrum. Because, you know, there just had to be a spectrum. I guess you could consider gray. I guess that would be a good word for it. Today, when we think of that time, we still see images of Italian gangsters. When we think of Italians in the 1920s, we think of this. When in reality, many looked like this. They were thought to not be able to blend into American society, but they had potential. They were just white enough, and if they didn't act Italian, no one would know. Did you know that Frank Sinatra was almost Frankie Satin, so people wouldn't know he was Italian? Would you honestly buy a Frankie Satin record? I don't think so. But this is why Italians are classified as white people now. Funny how that works. So, where does The Godfather fit in? It represents the idea that assimilation is a choice. In the beginning of the film, Mike Corleone doesn't want to have anything to do with the mafia, so he acts nothing like his family. Tom Hagen, on the other hand, acts like them, and he's not even Italian. They both made a choice to assimilate into whatever mold they want. This is further seen when Mike decides then to act like his family. The discrimination didn't stop after the 1920s. In fact, around the 50s, my great-aunt Dolores Ligotti tried moving into a house with her husband in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. It was an upper-middle-class area, and it was predominantly white. So when she goes to close the deal on the house, they raise the price to a ridiculous amount that she can't even afford, and she eventually had to fight it, and she was able to move into her house. I asked my mom what discrimination she felt, and this is what she had to say.
Well, I can say that when I was a young girl, I felt that because I was darker, and I definitely was Italian, and where we first lived as a young girl, we didn't live in a community that had Italian people in it. There was mostly German and a lot of Scandinavian people at that time. It was, should I say where? It was the west side of Detroit, and it was in Rosedale Park. When we moved into the area, there were people who didn't want us there because of our family was darker, and my mother was fair, even though she was Italian, but my father was darker and the rest of it. So it made me feel uneasy. And then once we got to know some of these people that felt that way, then they realized that we were nice people and it was okay. But I did feel that. I felt like I wasn't wanted.
Except for the occasional questions like, is your family in the mafia? Have they ever killed anyone? Have you ever killed anyone? Do you eat spaghetti like all the time? You must have a lot of money, right? Why aren't you tan? I haven't really faced a lot of discrimination. No one calls me Dago or a WAP, and I think that's because those racial slurs aren't as commonplace as they used to be. Today, Italian Americans mostly face the challenges of being stereotyped, which leads to a kind of discrimination that is often ignored or not even realized. Let's say someone walks into a job interview and they have an Italian name. The person conducting the interview may think this person is hot-headed, has mob connections, or anything else the media says about Italians. Do you think that person looking for a job is going to be taken seriously? I guess since Italian Americans are now considered white, the discrimination and stereotypes are okay. That's what many Italian Americans and other groups are fooled to think. In reality, it's far from okay. If discrimination against any other group is seen as bad, why would Italians be any different? Since the media has shown us what Italian American families should look like, let's see what a real Italian American family looks like.
Mambo Italiano, try an angelada with the fish bacala and an egg umba. I love how you dance the rumba, but take some advice, paisano. Learn how to mambo. If you're gonna be a square, you ain't gonna.
Now that you know the truth about Italian Americans, are you gonna think twice before you stereotype?
Mambo Italiano, go Joe, shake it like a Giovanna. Hello, kiss it, did you get happy in the feet when you mambo Italiano?